We snuck into a theme park and got chased. My friend claimed to have snuck into the park before, so I had good reason to think we could pull it off without anything too eventful happening. Boy, was I wrong. We'd hardly been there any time at all when we spotted several men who appeared to be searching for something. What they found was us. We managed to get away, but not without it turning into one of the scariest nights of my life. When two of my friends and I were juniors at SUNY Purchase College back in 2018, we decided to sneak into Playland Park in Rye, New York. One of my friends grew up in Rye and had done it many times before. So while I was nervous about getting arrested for trespassing, I felt a bit reassured that the park wasn't very well monitored at night. At around 1 a.m., we drove and parked our car next to a large fence and attempted to scale it. It was rather difficult and required us to step onto each other's hands to get over it, which gave me intense anxiety about how we were planning to get all three of us back over the fence on the way out. After both my friends got over the fence, I attempted to chicken out and wait in the car. But I finally decided to join, and after several minutes of struggling, I made it over the fence on my own, and we began walking while lighting up a joint. It was pitch black at this point, and almost all the lights in the park were off. We approached the water flume ride, which went up about 100 to 150 feet and then dropped into a steep slope. Along the side of the ride was a staircase for technicians and employees, which my friends decided to climb for a better view. At this point, I chickened out and decided to stay at the bottom, out of a fear of heights. As they ascended the stairs, I looked out across the park and noticed something very strange. We weren't alone in the park. Several hundred feet from us was a pond, with what appeared to be a small boat or raft inside, and 4 or so people riding inside it with flashlights attached to their heads. What was even stranger was the fact that there were 2 dark figures swimming in the pond, looking for something underneath the water. I could barely make out the silhouettes of these figures, but after a few minutes, I noticed that they could see us, and began mobilizing the boat in our direction. I frantically started whisper screaming to my friends, who were all the way at the top of the water ride and could barely hear me. At this point, the boat had reached land, and the little lights on their helmets were heading in our direction, fast. My friends finally raced down the stairs, and we began sprinting as fast as we could down a boardwalk that was dimly lit back towards the way we came. As we sprinted down the long, straight boardwalk, I realized that we were completely visible and started to accept the reality of being caught or arrested. We somehow rounded a corner, got back to the fence, and climbed over safely, hopping into our car and dipping immediately. I couldn't believe we didn't get caught, as the figures chasing after us were no more than a few hundred feet away when they spotted us. To this day, I still wonder why the heck there were people swimming around a pond in an amusement park at 1:30 a.m. My friend had told me that kids had drowned in that pond before, making me wonder if they were searching for a body. I Googled any articles I could find, but to no avail. Me and my 2 friends are still totally puzzled by this experience and can't think of a very logical explanation. Just thinking about it now gives me chills. Even if someone had been lost in that pond before, it raises the question of why they'd be looking for a body now. Theories in the comments are all over the place. Some people believe it was some sort of military training exercise, although it's unclear why they'd be doing that at a theme park of all places. Some think the men were thieves who had hidden something in that pond to keep it hidden in plain sight, then went back after hours to look for it. That's a really intriguing movie idea, although it sounds like it would be a terrible plan in real life. Then again, maybe that's what makes this story so effective. Almost any plausible reason for those men to have been there makes no sense if you think too hard about it, which means it's nearly impossible to rationalize this story in a way that isn't still a little creepy. What do you think? Do any of these ideas make sense to you? Or do you have your own theory on what those men were doing there? Share your thoughts with us down in the comments. I've been hearing whispers outside my window. So these past weeks, something creepy has been happening. I live in an apartment complex in a rather large city. My apartment is on the ground floor, and I've got big windows, which I open for a few minutes before going to bed every night. For the past 2 weeks or so, there's been a squeaking noise every time my windows were open at night, no matter the time. It doesn't sound like an animal. Pets are also not allowed on the property of the complex. It sounds like someone is repeatedly squishing a dog toy at night, maybe 5 to 10 meters from my window, where dogs aren't allowed. At first, I wasn't really thinking anything of it. However, the sound was closer today, and there was whispering, loud whispering. I'm sure it's not my neighbors. I'm used to their sounds, and they don't stay up that late. The whispering sounds rushed, kind of like it's out of breath, and it was close. I froze when I heard it for a second before immediately closing the windows and turning off the lights. I tried looking out the windows, but it's pitch black out there. I don't know if I'm overreacting, but I'm kind of creeped out. Any ideas on how to rationalize this? Update. I didn't think I'd make an update, but here we go. 8 months ago, I posted about hearing weird noises from outside. After I posted, I kind of forgot about it and made sure not to open my window at night. One morning, I saw a guy standing in the yard about 20 meters from my window, just looking at the apartment complex. I thought it was just a neighbor. Oh, how I was wrong. During the summer, I would come home late, around 10 p.m., because I stayed in the library to study for my exams. Every day, I would open my windows with the blinds closed while getting ready for bed. Then one day, I heard noises again. I tried to brush it off, but I got nervous. It sounded like rustling in the bushes in front of my window, like something or someone was walking around. I slammed my window shut and tried to forget about it. Fast forward a few days, and I'm coming home late again. To understand this part, you have to know that my apartment is on the ground floor, and I have a big glass door as my entrance. In front of my entrance, there are a few trees and bushes and a small lamp. Other than that, it's pretty much completely dark. I'm used to it, though. However, that one day, when I was just about to pass the trees toward my apartment, I got a weird feeling, like someone was watching me. My heart started racing for seemingly no reason. I had the gut feeling that there was someone in the bushes watching and waiting for me to walk past. I speed walked to my door and unlocked it, all while constantly looking back at the bushes. I went in, slammed the door shut, and looked outside. I thought I could see a face behind the tree. I chalked it up to me being exhausted from studying. Either way, I didn't turn on the lights in my apartment that evening. Fast forward about 3 weeks, and I come home late again. It's around 1 a.m., and I'm getting ready for bed. My blinds are closed, but somehow I feel watched again, and this time the feeling is not going away. I go lay in bed, but I can't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I hear it. A knock. There's a freaking knock at my window. That can't be it, right? That must have been something else, right? I start trying to make up explanations for the sound, but nothing makes sense. The next morning, I go to take out the trash. I pass the apartment of a girl my age, and there I see it. A sign. Attention, it says. For some time now, there has been a peeping Tom going around the property. The police have been informed. Please stay alert. Thank you. It has been 4 weeks since I saw that sign, and I would be lying if I said I feel safe. This almost feels like that urban legend where someone hears scratching noises and then finds a hook on their car door. The scary part is that, in this case, it's a lot easier to imagine this really happening. The only detail that doesn't quite add up to me is why OP kept hearing squeaking noises. I know what a peeping Tom does and why she heard loud, heavy whispering sounds, but squeaking? That sounds like a medical condition he might want to get checked out. The only other part that made me doubt whether this happened was the fact that OP saw a random guy outside her window and didn't even think for a second that maybe he had something to do with the constant noises outside of her window. But even if this story was made up, goodness knows it's based enough on real things that happen every day, and that's enough to make this a true tale of terror. Keep your windows closed, kids. You just never know who's outside. But it's doubtful they come bearing gifts. Everyone knows good guys come in through the chimney. If you made it this far in the video, consider liking and subscribing for more videos coming. Coworker stabbed right in front of me. I had just started a new job working for Countrywide in Woodland Hills, California. It was a mortgage company before the CEO was indicted and went under around the 2008 crash. We had to do about 2 weeks of training in a classroom before they would release us to the floor to start on our positions. I befriended my neighbor, who told me he was a stand-up comedian on the side, performing on Comic View and a couple of local clubs. After work, we would smoke out in the parking lot, and he would crack jokes on this Asian guy that was in our class. I thought it was bizarre, personally, because he's a grown man and acting like a high schooler. The next day, after work, he starts in on the guy again, goofing on his car. I remember he had a 1980s Honda CR-V with the paint chipped all over it. I asked him why he was picking on this guy, and he just shrugged it off. He confessed to me some of the issues in his life. His best friend had tried to take his life, and his ex-wife had plotted to have his life ended along with her boyfriend. Maybe at the time, that was all a warning sign of something ominous about to happen. The next morning, we were split up into groups to work on the computer. I was partnered with the comedian, who was on one side of me, and partnered with a guy on the other side who had just been discharged from the Marines. I was talking with the Marine when, all of a sudden, the comedian falls on top of me, knocking me out of my seat. I look up, and that Asian kid has a butcher knife and is stabbing the comedian repeatedly in front of me. He was able to push him off and run out the door. All he said was, "What the heck, man? I don't even know you." The Asian guy is staring right at me now with vengeance in his eyes. He never takes his eyes off me while holding the kitchen knife covered in blood. I look at the trainer, and he's rushing all the other classmates out of the room. I tried talking to him, saying, "Hey man, everything's all good, no worries." He said not a word, just staring at me. I waited for all our classmates to leave, and I slowly started backing up to the door. My first thought was that if he lunges at me, this is going to get ugly. He stares at me as I back out of the room, and the look he had still haunts me. It was a look of regret, like he knew at that moment it was over. He threw his life away. The trainer held the door closed so he couldn't get out. About 10 minutes later, smoke started coming from the room. I went to my car and left to clear my head. As I was leaving the property, about 5 cop cars and a fire truck fly right past me. I come back after an hour or so, and one of the officers charges up to me, screaming at me. "Where the heck were you? We have multiple witnesses saying you knew the victim and why he may have been stabbed." I said to the cop, "I don't know why he was stabbed. Go ask the kid that stabbed him." The cop didn't like that answer. They charged into the room and arrested him as he was trying to burn the whole building down. The next day, we all showed up to class, except for the comedian. They sent a trauma counselor to talk to the class. She asked me, since I was there alone with the guy, if I needed to talk. I cracked some jokes, like, "I'm good, it's just another day in Los Angeles." The class started laughing, but the counselor wasn't amused. The comedian was in critical condition, but survived. I found out from the Asian guy's friends they were all shocked he did this. He was expecting a son. Maybe that was the look he gave me, the regret that he was not going to be there for his child. Life is a trip, man. At least one commenter is weirdly happy about this story. Look, I understand that the guy was a jerk, but if you're celebrating a story where a guy gets stabbed repeatedly for making some bad jokes, it might be time to seek therapy. Then again, did OP say 2 other attempts had been made on this guy's life before? Because if I'm going to criticize anybody, maybe that's actually a better place to start. If you've been the target of 3 separate assassination attempts, it's safe to say it might be time to rethink some of your life choices. At the very least, maybe insult comedy's not the route you want to go. Nobody wants an office job, but it's got to be a better lifestyle than this. Just treat every attempted stabbing as a review and assume they weren't exactly giving you 5 stars. Creepy commuter knows way too much about me. This happened a few years ago when I was 21 and had to travel by bus regularly. It was a normal day. I left my home, took the bus down to the city, and waited at the bus station for my next bus. Suddenly, a girl greeted me. She was cute, so I thought I may be lucky. I greeted her back. She asked my name and got it right, which was pretty confusing and scary. I said yes, probably already with some confusion in my voice, and she giggled. She asked if I took the bus often, how long the travel was, where I lived, and all kinds of weird stuff. What struck me as weird was how quickly she just nodded and moved on to another question. My younger self thought maybe she was just in a rush, or that maybe she was the kind of weirdo who just talks fast. I even forgot during all these questions that she knew my name already, but never told me hers. When the bus finally arrived, she said goodbye and just left. She didn't even take the same bus we'd been waiting for, which I realized after sitting down. Suddenly, the weirdness struck me again, and I realized how much she had asked in a way that seemed more like she was checking off a list instead of learning something new. A few days later, I met with my best friend during that time. He was stressed, so I asked what was going on. I knew he had some trouble with his parents, so I thought it may be something along those lines. He told me instead that his ex had turned into a stalker. For instance, he never gave her a key, yet she would suddenly be in his flat when he got home from work. She messaged and phoned his parents in order to talk to him or to get an explanation for their breakup and accuse them of talking him into it. She also visited him during work and made a scene so that his boss had to throw her out of the building and threatened to call the police. I remembered the girl from the bus station. I described her, even though I could only vaguely remember what she looked like. He nodded while getting pale and told me that was her. I asked how she knew me and why she wanted to talk to me, which he couldn't answer. She knew my name because he talked about me once, but he never told her more than that. We didn't learn how she knew so much about me, and we never want to because he had it harder than me. He got terrorized at home by her, which drove him to the decision to finally call the police and get a restraining order. We never again talked about the situation because it was just so bizarre. The reason they broke up was that she kept accusing him over and over again of cheating. She was the one breaking up with him, but she also seemed to go mental at the same time and accused him of breaking up with her. I get why OP is creeped out, but this actually sounds like a pretty sweet deal. A cute girl who already knows everything about you? Think of how much small talk that would save on your first date. That's just a win for everyone involved. I honestly feel like he messed up by not going for it. In all seriousness, it's weird that this girl not only knew his personal details, but even knew which bus stop to find him at. One would assume she'd been following him for some time at that point, and the motive is unclear since she already knew where to find her ex. It kind of sounds like she was just looking for other ways to dig up information on him and decided to go through his friends. If she accused him of cheating, then it goes without saying that she was probably a little paranoid. But it also sounds like she never tried to go through OP again, which makes this one-off encounter even stranger. What do you think? Did this girl have an endgame, or was she just unhinged and lashing out in any direction her paranoia might lead her? Let us know your theories on her motives in the comments below. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.